What's Bruin is presented by Crown Trophy of Little Rock. Nationally known, locally owned. Crown Trophy of Little Rock is more than awards. They can customize apparel, uniforms, giftware, and more. Crown Trophy of Little Rock is owned by a mom of 3 PA alums, Kelley, Chris, and Carter. Visit them online at crowntrophy.com and be sure to thank them for supporting PA Live.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to What's Bruin. I'm Joshua Carroll, of course, joined by Coach Kelley. Coach, we had a tough week last week. We traveled to Brentwood, Tennessee to play Ravenwood. First time these two schools have met. How was the drive out there, the travel? Was that pretty harsh?
You know, it on our school bus, on one of the buses, the air conditioner kind of went out. And so 6 hours in the summer heat. I bet it was close to 90 on the bus on the way over. It makes it tough, but you know, in the end, we tell the kids what doesn't kill you only makes you stronger. And so, you know, you battle different obstacles and stuff like that. But in the end, you know, we're blessed to be a part of what we are and have what we have. So, you know, something happens like that, you just keep on going with what the good parts are and get past the bad.
Well, I know if the heat makes you stronger, we must be a bunch of he-men and women after that broadcast, because we were baked after that game. It was, I think somebody measured the heat index at 114.
Wow.
That was before the game started, before the sun went down.
It was warm when the sun was up. We were warming up, yeah.
Well, so the final score in that one was 47-61, but if you had looked at the offensive yards, the amount of time that the Bruins had the ball, you would have clearly thought that the Bruins had won it. You know, we had a total of 673 offensive yards versus Ravenwood's 465, and we had possession of the ball almost double what they had at 32 minutes, and then they had it for just over 15 minutes. How do you equate those? How do you balance that equation?
And we ran 103 plays. They ran 39, I think.
Right.
You know, so we had you know, we're way more plays, 250% more plays than they had. But what it is they scored a couple of quick. I say a couple. They scored a lot of quick plays. They had the one kid that I think literally, somebody was talking to me today, I said, that's the most talented team in 28 years I've ever coached. I coached in 5 years in Texas that I've coached against. And I've seen some great players, great teams, but they've got more overall talent maybe than anybody I've ever seen. And they're well coached. But that one kid that caught all the long passes, you know, I think he had 8 receptions for 358 or something like that, 7 touchdowns receiving. And then he had another one rushing. He's the fastest kid in person on a field I've ever seen.
Wow.
In high school football, and they scored quickly, so they didn't have the ball long as far as your possession you were talking about, time, which, you know, the good and the bad. The good is it plays right into our hands. We want to get into a game where there's a lot of possessions. We obviously don't want them to score, but when there's a lot of possessions, we think we're going to stop them a higher percentage time than they're going to stop us. So that said, let's say we're going to score 75% of the time, and let's say they're going to score 50. Well, if we have the ball 4 times in a game, we're going to score 3 touchdowns, we're going to score 2. That's only a 1 touchdown difference. So it's a close game where at the end, a bad call, a fumble, a pick, anything might change the game. But let's take the same percentage and go 16 possessions. Now we're going to score 12 times, they're going to score 8. That gives us room to mess up because it's a 4 touchdown difference. No. And why that's important is we never want to leave it in the ref's hands. We never want to leave it where one mistake can cost us the game. So we don't mind increasing the number of possessions. So if they're going to score, we just assume them score fast,
right,
and increase the total number of possessions in a game. So that doesn't bother us. That doesn't, you know, usually we don't end up with a time of possession win. But in this case we did, because they did what we usually do, scored really fast.
In this particular game, we actually came away with 3 out of the 7 attempted 4th down conversions. Do you have a number that you go for every game? You try to go for like 50%? Or
yeah, you know, since 2006, when I really started keeping good records on it, we're right above 50%, like 50.2%, I think, over that number of years. So, you know, that's what we expect to be in the big picture of it. 3 out of 7 is 42.9%, I think. Is that right?
That sounds right.
And so, you know, that was a little below, but that's a small sample size, one or the other. And, you know, unfortunately, one of those was a big one for us. Later in the game, we got tied, and I called a bad call. I called a bad play. But yeah, I mean, we like to be around 50%.
Braden Bratcher, couple of weeks ago, broke all kinds of records with a 900-yard game. Of course, this game wasn't too bad for him. He actually came away with 585 yards total offense. He seems to be getting more and more comfortable as the leader of this team.
Yeah, and against two really good teams, he's done that against. And we're to me, and I hate to say this sounds terrible because we've got to play a tough game Friday too, but we're one of the best offensive teams in the nation over the last 13 years. We finished in the top 5 every year except one out of 16,000 high schools. And so we're really good offensively. We've got a good scheme. We've got a good system. And then when you put a kid in there, what we're really good at is adapting it to the type of quarterback we have. If we've got a Freddie Knight or a Braden Bratcher, we adapt it to that. If we've got a Will Heffley that stands in the pocket and throws, or a Stephen Lux or a Spencer Keith, we adapt it to that. And Braden has adapted himself to our offense as well much better this year. And I think you're seeing the benefits of that. And against two really good teams, look at Springdale Harbor. We beat them. And everybody's like, well, they must not be very good on defense. I hate it when people take credit from our kids.
Right. Our
kids played well on offense. And then they turn around and beat Russellville, who has their coach used to be Little Rock Christian's coach and put up great numbers, beat them 49-0. And so you're like, wait, they give up 0 against Russellville, a good 6A school. Maybe their defense is pretty good. Maybe it was our offense that was good, not their defense that was bad. And the same thing, we gave up some points on defense, and they scored 50 on Russellville, who has Todd Wood, our old defense coordinator, who we know is really good. And so, when you look at it like that, what Braden's doing, but for the two teams we play, because Ravenwood really is probably the best high school team I've ever played against. And for him to do that against them, with an undersized team, 4 kids over 200 pounds, 3 offensive linemen that aren't 200 pounds, they've got a kid that's going to be in the NFL. That DN will be an NFL player someday. And maybe that receiver too, and they've got a D tackle that might be too. So, with that and what he's able to do, it's absolutely amazing. But it goes to show you, last year he was learning how to fit himself into our offense, and I was learning how to fit it around him. And this year he's already adapted to our offense. It's throw when we can, run if you have to.
Sure. And
he's doing that almost perfectly right now.
There were a couple of times you could kind of see the wheels turning in the back of his mind as he's looking, and he would just kind of make that type of decision and get those first downs when he could. It was pretty impressive. Of course, one of the ones that we've been waiting for to show up on the varsity team, Joe Hyman, he's really showing out this year. And to come away with, he had 120 receiving yards, total offense of 149 yards. You could see him continuing to be a big player for this year's team.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, and I'd said it before. I think with another media group, they were talking about Joe and all the junior high coaches that coached him. And I watched him. They were telling me since he was in 5th and 6th grade, this kid's good. He's going to be an impact player in high school his sophomore year, and then last year, 7th and 8th grade he was obviously, and then 9th grade. He played one game, got hurt, and they're like, I don't care. He's going to be that good. That's happened before, and it's just tough to have such an impact your sophomore year. I mean, you're 15,
right?
And the rest of the kids are 17 and 18 years old, if you're Joe. And so I was skeptical, and I kept seeing him in practice. I'm like, this kid. Then he got hurt in the summer. He was out for 4 to 6 weeks, and so I was, number one, I was worried about his safety and being able to endure a high school season, so I had to be smart with that, but they were right. I was wrong. What an impact the kids had. And I didn't really think it was going to be receiving wise, but because he wasn't good coming in as a receiver, but he worked really hard this summer and in the spring on catching the ball out of the backfield. And now we love to throw it to him out of the backfield. They're extended runs. Right. They count as receiving yards, but they're extended runs. I mean, I would say 90% of his passes have come at or behind the line of scrimmage, right, not down the field. Sure. And now he's definitely shown the ability, like on that trick play against Harbor, to go up and catch the ball. He's a player, but he's basically doing extended runs out of the backfield, and you look up, and the kid's got 300-something yards receiving in 2 games.
Right.
And just wait, the running will come. Right. I promise you, the rushing's going to come with that. And then when people realize he can do both, I mean, it's going to be trouble for the other team when he can do either one of those things.
It's just impressive to watch him. And like you said, I didn't expect to see him receiving at all. And so when he came in at Harbor and started catching passes, I'm like, wait a minute, they're using him as both. Okay, that sounds great.
Yeah.
Another one that really impressed me this week was Cooper White. He walked away with 6 receptions for 80 yards total. He's really, again, looks like he's putting in a lot of effort there.
And all crucial. Cooper comes from John David, and everybody knows how good he was for us. He's at Arkansas now, walking on there. And Cooper's got a chance to be just like him. And Cooper's a junior, and he's still learning some things. But Cooper Cooper really makes crucial plays. It's weird. He's one of those kids that every once in a while he'll drop a ball that's easy.
Right.
But then he catches the crazy hard ones. And, the little slant he caught for the touchdown that helped really get us back in and get the momentum back for us for a touchdown against Ravenwood was a tough one because it's there and Braden throws the ball 100 miles an hour and the ball's on you before you can even find it really coming out of his hands. And they blitzed everybody, so he ran even like a 2-yard slant route. And we don't do a lot of those, but the ball's on you and he caught that and then runs through a tackle. He made another one to set up the field goal right before the half where he caught the ball over the middle with a safety coming down on him hard and a linebacker underneath him. He splits them, ran the perfect route because we let them adjust their routes. We don't say run 5 steps and run a 45-degree angle. We let them pick their route between guys and stuff and have a lot of teaching in that. He does that perfectly, catches it in traffic, gets down quickly like we asked for, so we get to run a play before we run the field goal. And so he stepped up and we got a lot of talented receivers, but he's a kid that's really got a chance to take that next step and go play somewhere in college if he keeps improving like he has now.
You had several who actually received in this past game. You had Mason Cobb also received for 5 passes. Dylan Allison, who was being used last year, is really just a punt returner.
Yeah.
We see him on the field catching multiple passes.
A kick returner.
Kick returner.
We don't return those punts.
You're right, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks for the correction.
I was thinking for a second.
No, not a punt returner.
Yeah.
That's the funniest thing. I don't know if I've mentioned it to you before. I love watching the other team's faces. Not the coaches, not the fans. I love watching the players' faces whenever they kick off to us they punt to us and all of our guys exit the field and they're looking around like, what did we miss? What just happened?
It's funny when I go to coaching clinics. And I speak at a lot of those clinics, and somebody will ask me about that. I never do a clinic on that.
Sure.
Obviously, it would last 2 seconds. But they'll ask, at the end, I take the question, be like, hey, coach, we've watched y'all's film. Why do y'all not return punts? And it's real easy. I'll say it's not only that we don't return punts, we also don't try to block the punt. And I said, what you're doing? I said, how many of y'all on 4th and 1, you wanted to block a punt, or 4th and 3, and you've had a punt block on where your guys jumped off sides because they're edgy. They've got to get that edge, And everybody in the room raised their hand. I said, okay, so there's one turnover. Because it's a turnover. You were about to get the ball back, and now they get the ball. It's a turnover.
Right.
I said, how many of y'all have roughed the kicker? Your guy's trying to get back there. He's fighting to block that punt. You got the punt block on. He knows he's roughed the kicker. Everybody in the room raised their hand. So how many of y'all have ever fumbled punt returner when they get it back? You get down there, and they all raise their hand. I go, not us, not once.
Right.
10 years, we haven't. Every time they've wanted to give the ball back, we've taken it. We've gotten it. And I said that's part of it. I look at the field position and, in college and the pros and high school, the net punt doesn't change much. It goes between 34 and 39 yards. That's the net punt you're going to get. And people are like, well, it's because you're in high school. It's not. It doesn't change much. There's a 5-yard difference. But to me, that 30 yards or that extra, say it bounces and rolls, what I figured out, it rolls about 8 more yards on average. We're losing 8 yards field position to never turn the ball over.
Sure.
To never rough the punter, to never jump off sides on 4th and 1, to never fumble the ball, to never, run it back and get 10 yards tacked onto the end of it the other way because you held or blocked in the back. Not us, not ever. And to me, numerically and statistically, that's worth it. That's why we don't do it.
That makes sense.
But anyway, going back to Mason Cobb, great first week. This week, they took Mason away from us. And, we have a couple plays that we really like, and he's really good at running. They saw in Harbor, he caught the first play of the game and took it for a touchdown. Or they caught the first touchdown of the game, passing-wise. And they took him away from us. We were still able to get him the ball, but that's what opened it up for some of the other guys. And, and one guy I think of was Miles Marotti. Miles is a little skinny kid that I didn't know how much he's going to be playing this summer. He worked it out. He worked really hard. I'm like, give this kid a chance. And that's what we built our program on. It's hardworking kids. Everybody thinks, oh, you had a Hunter Henry and you had a Freddie Knight and stuff. Those are far and few between. Love those guys.
Right.
Obviously, we love having those guys. The Joe Hymans that's going to go play college somewhere one day. But we've built a program on kids that work hard and go, what can I do to play? And I'll say, hey, learn every position. So you'll see him out there. He's running 5 different positions. And And what a game he had. A couple of crucial, started us off with a touchdown, had another one they called back, and then caught a couple of 15, 20-yard passes, one that we really needed a first down on. And so Joe opens it up for them. Braden opens it up for them. Then when they take them away, and Mason away, that opens it up for Braden and Joe. And when you've got guys that you trust, which we trust all these guys, Cooper White, you mentioned, Mason Cobb, I mentioned Miles Marotti, you got Joe, and you got, a couple of those, Joe's going to be a star. It just is what it is. And I'm not trying to make everybody jealous that's watching for their own child, but he is. God gave him some abilities, and Braden's doing his thing. But what they should do is be rooting for these guys because they're great people and great kids, but because they're opening up for their kid too. If they're like, I wish my son was getting more passes, they will. Right. Trust me, as people take people away, they will. And that's what opened it up for some of these other guys when they take Mason Cobb away this week, or when they tried to take Joe away this week, which they did. Then we've got other guys that'll step up and catch the ball and do their thing. So it's pretty fun to watch as a football coach.
Sure, no doubt.
Into the game, going into that, we talk about offense a lot. Everybody, I heard a lot about our defense the week before in Harbor, and we gave up a lot of points, and I know, and we've still got to keep getting better and make some changes and stuff. But I was really, really proud of our defense for what they were able to do in the second half. We came out. They had to we were down 28-6 at one point. We had to have some stops. Now, we got a couple onside kicks that helped us, but we had to have some stops, and they did a great job against most talented team I've ever seen. They did a great job against those guys of making stops. We needed, got one turnover, stop on fourth downs, and I was really proud of our defensive effort and the way they were able to step up and play really well, especially for a team that spreads you way out like that, where you're not going to have a bunch of gang tackles.
Right.
Hard to tackle in the open field. They use their athletes well. So I was really proud of our defense this past week, especially in the second half and what they were able to do.
And to me, it looked like coming into the second half of that game, I couldn't really tell whether it was whether the Bruins came out really on fire the second half, maybe a little more than the first half, or if maybe the I keep wanting to call them the Ravens, the Raptors.
The Raptors, yeah.
The Raptors, maybe they were getting tired in the second half, which was a combination of both?
It was a combination of both. Now, early in the second half, they should have been rested and coming out. I'll be honest, I was worried early. I was late getting out of the locker room. I was talking to a kid separately back there and trying to get some things right with him. Kids, it's funny. People wonder what's going on. Well, what goes on with the kids? Some kids, when things are going bad, you're down 28-6 or whatever, you go in at halftime. Some use it as a chip on their shoulder. They're mad. They're motivated. They're going to go out and give it a little more or whatever. And some of them lose complete confidence, and you've got to build them back up at halftime. The kids and you don't want that to be. You're not going to play good if you don't think you're going to play good. So I'm late coming out of halftime. Literally, they've already kicked off when I get to the end of the field. I mean, the end of the field. I'm coming through the gate. I can't find the guy to open the gate. And I sent the kid on, and I'm jogging slower. He's hustling to get up there. I'm jogging slower. And they've kicked off. And I didn't get to see what happened when I'm at the corner of the field. And I look, and by the time I get to the coaching box where I can call the play, I look up and we've got the ball like the 5. I'm like, what the heck happened on the kickoff? Well, look, watching the film now, I see we've tried to pick it up, fumbled around, kid picked up and stepped out of bounds.
Right.
And which we've got to, I've got to fix those things. But we start on the 5 coming out of half, and I'm like, God, this is the bad scenario. This is when, and then we promptly march it down 95 yards for a touchdown.
Right.
That gave us momentum. Nobody's got momentum coming out of the half. Maybe we've got more confidence because I went in basically and said at halftime, guys, we're down 34-17 and we've played terrible. We fumbled the ball. We've thrown interceptions in the end zone. We were about to score and they ended up going down and scoring instead. That's a 14-point swing. We've played as bad as we can play. And this is the best team I've ever seen. And somehow we're still in the game. This means we can play with them if we just fix a few things. I'm hoping we came out of there with confidence. I think we did. And I've had many people say, what did you do at halftime? I went in and is there a little motivation? Yeah. I give them a little rah-rah. But at the same time, I just explained to them, here's what we've done wrong. Do y'all understand? These are mistakes that everybody in the world would think we made that we are easily fixable. Just don't fumble the ball. That's easily fixable. Don't throw a pick. That's easily fixable if we change a couple things. And so I think they came out with some confidence like, wait a minute. Because we went in, the atmosphere, the hype. I mean, it was USA Today had it as one of the top 8 games in the country. Sure. Out of 8,000 games, one of the top 8 in the country. Did a little thing on it. And I think, and having 2 weeks off, we come in and the speed's there, and I hadn't got them ready for the speed of it because we've been off for 2 weeks. And they walk out there and like, holy moly, a little bit shell-shocked, much like teams are when they come in here to our place. And, then coming out of halftime, I think they were completely confident, like I wish we would have been at the beginning, which showed me some things I've got to do. But coming out of halftime, I think we were confident, a little motivated, but very confident because you're like, okay, we can do this. This isn't. And then you go down to March 95, and we had the ball for quite a few plays. Their defense got a little tired, which helped. Right. And, another thing that helps us win, in my opinion, people go, why aren't you playing Joe on defense? Why aren't you playing Braden on defense? Why aren't you playing some of the, Dylan Allison both ways.
Got to rest at some point.
Yeah, that showed perfectly because in the first quarter, maybe if we had our best athletes out there all the time, that'd be great. But in the third and fourth, it showed because they were playing some of their studs both ways.
Right.
They were dead tired. So you were right on. It was a little bit of both. We were confident and motivated and moved the ball down. They got tired, and as the game went on, they were dying.
Right.
You could see it in their kids on our sideline for kickoffs, and when the plays would come our way, they were struggling, and our kids were still fresh. So in the first quarter, when let's just say a Joe Hyman playing defense would be a 5 out of 5 or a 10. Let's go on a scale of 1 to 10. So the kid's athletically a 10. In the first quarter, he's going to be a 10 on the defense and the offense. In the third quarter, he's going to be about an 8 and 8 because he's tired. In the fourth quarter, at the end of the game, he's going to be a 5 and a 5 because everybody's tired. You're not as good. You just aren't. And you'd like to go suck it up and dig it out. That's all nice to say. But when you've played 103 plays on offense and you throw in another 50 on defense, that's a lot of plays. So now all of a sudden, their guys that were, our guys that were 6s, their guys that are 10s, it starts balancing up later in the game because our kids are fresher and seem like 8s in the fourth quarter. Their 10s are now 6s, and we do start catching up. And that just showed me, honestly, in that respect, forget the overall, what people will never get behind the scenes when you got 22 different starters, how great that is for your football team.
Sure.
It's just better when you can practice different. They've all got incentives. And when you've got 22, we play a lot more than that on offense 11. We play a lot more than that on defense. You've got 33 kids that are playing in the first quarter of the game. That's a big deal for your culture of your team, and it enables you to dangle carrots out to get them playing time and motivate them everywhere else and study more and do those things. But you hit it right on. We came out, and when we drove down, we were confident. We got more confidence. We got a little bit of that momentum that people say is an intangible thing, but you could feel it in that game. We got to 40-40. We can talk about that in a minute. But they were dead tired, and the longer we went, the more tired they got, the better it was for us. And if not for a few plays that gave them a little spark, we go in and we end up coming back and beating them.
Well, Coach, you mentioned about momentum. And, one of the things that I heard around the crowd, and I kind of was thinking the same thing when I went back and watched the game after. How much do those TV timeouts hurt momentum? And you said it's an intangible thing to begin with, but when you consider the fact that it's got to be a mental thing for one. I mean, no one can doubt when you look at baseball that baseball is a complete mental. It's a mental game. Football, that's got to be, that momentum has to be part of the momentum or the mental game there, right?
Yeah, you're exactly right. And it's both. It's momentum comes from the mentality of both teams. And, it's funny. I've talked to a lot of guys that like to run numbers and the analytics people in the world and some really, really smart people that work for ESPN and do the analytics and they've engineered some pretty cool little things that they run. But one of the things they won't do is bring momentum into play. And they say when you can't assign a constant to it, a constant value, and I get that.
Sure.
There's the science in the world, and I'm a biology minor, so I get it. But we won't bring that into play. But it is a very real thing, and it's something we see on onside kicks when we get one, and we see when we convert a fourth down. And I've got some numbers that back those things up. But it comes from the mentality of when you get confidence, you're playing a little quicker. Quarterbacks are throwing the ball a little sooner because he's not like, I think that guy, he's not like, I think that defender turned his hips, I'm supposed to throw it down. Or I think that defender stayed flat, I'm supposed to throw it over him. He's not doubting that and hesitating. And now he's got more room for error. He's delivering the ball quicker. We've got more room for run after the catch. Defensively, a linebacker isn't like, wait a minute, they ran a reverse while ago. Is he really going to do that, or is a reverse coming? He's a step slower to react.
Right.
Now he's attacking. He's getting there sooner at point of attack. A guy didn't have a chance to get in the open field and break a run. It all plays into the confidence of the player. Then you get what we call momentum. Everything's going right for you. And it's funny. I'm an analytical guy. I like to have reasons for everything. I like to have numbers to back it up because I think we're wrong when we go, that's a good play we ran all last year. And you look and you ran it twice good and 15 times terribly. But you remember the two good ones. I think our mind's fullest. I almost want to go, momentum is a concrete thing. You can feel it. I feel this table that's concrete. You could feel it the other night.
Right.
When we started coming back, especially when it was 40 to 24. So we're down 16. And I told our kids, we're within 2 scores. People don't look and go 16. Look and go 2 touchdowns. We'll find a way to make a good 2-point conversion on both of those. When it was 40-22, we got it, or 40-24, we got it to 40-32. Where we're 1 touchdown, 1 2-point. We had already made the previous 2-point. You could feel it. And when we hit 40, and Mason Cobb runs that in to make it 40-40, it wasn't intangible anymore. I hate to say that. It was very tangible. We knew we had it. We felt it. They felt it. And it's amazing how it influences sports. But we had it all the way up to that point until we gave it back, or until they took it back. Depends on how you look at it.
Sure.
And on that side, you say you took it, and on this side, we say we gave it.
Right.
But it's a very real thing. But it comes from confidence. It comes from mentality. It becomes a very real thing because when you have it, it's because you're confident and you are a step sooner. You're not hesitating at all. You're just reacting, not thinking. You're trusting what Malcolm Gladwell would call thin slicing, that your brain sees all these things and you react to it without overthinking it, so to speak, and that's what makes it happen.
You talked about the great job that the defense did in the second half, and of course the defense in tackles anyway was led by Fuda Shinkawa. No surprise there. He's been a defensive star for this team the last couple of years.
Yeah.
But you've also got Clinton Wilson, Trent Sawyer. Looking back at Fuda, I see that he had 2.5 tackles for loss for 14 yards. He's just killing it out there.
Yeah, it's amazing because when I talk about Fuda with people, and, especially last year when he was named All-State as a sophomore, and they're like, how big's this kid?
Right.
Oh, he's 140. That's another non-conventional thing we do. I mean, we have to on the defensive line because, you got Wilson Miller out there. It's 175 pounds, and that's not a defensive lineman,
Right.
not in our league, but it is for us. But, what we've done is our defensive coach has done a great job of scheming our defense around the speed and quickness rather than the size. Now, sometimes the size is going to hurt you, but sometimes that speed helps us. Fuda's the fastest kid I've ever seen from 0 to 5 yards. I mean, ever, that I've ever coached. And he uses that well, and our coaches, instead of putting him in the secondary where overall speed matters, 40 yards matter because you got to chase the guy down the field, put him on the line, blitz him some. He gets to that 5 yards quicker than that tackle can get to him to block it.
Right.
He chases, a lot of his tackles behind the line, the ball went the other direction. It was going the other way, and he comes off this side and chases it down backside. Because a lot of times a running back, when you hand it off and he's running the other way, he's hesitating because they're looking for a hole to cut back in. Cutbacks are big and big in the big play world and run, so running backs are looking for that. You hesitate with Fuda chasing you down,
right?
And we don't. And some of the other kids can't do that. They'll give it their effort, but they can't get there.
Right.
Fuda chases you down backside. We had a great blitz on when we really needed the ball, and we got the ball back. The quarterback ended up fumbling. They ended up calling him down, but he's in the pocket, and Fuda's coming off the edge. He sees Fuda immediately and takes off sprinting the other way. We've got 3 kids from the play side chasing him, and Fuda catches him first. And that's Fuda, and he's really quick, but he's got a motor. He never thinks the play's out of reach because he's proven to himself and us time and time again that the play is never out of reach. And he's a lot of fun. When I every once in a while quit coaching and watch the film as a fan. And I think that's important to my psyche. I think more coaches should do that. When I watch it, I'm always a big fan of Fuda, not because he makes the plays. That's fun to watch. But because of his effort and the way he's got that quickness. And then you stop yourself and that's a 140-pound linebacker just creating havoc. I think of Lawrence Taylor. I think of Ray Lewis. You don't think of Fuda.
No.
And so it's amazing and fun to watch. It's got to be fun for fans to watch.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. It is a lot of fun. Looking forward to this week. We've got on Friday, we're traveling down to Shreveport, Louisiana for what seems like the second time, but it's a different school. Evangel Christian Academy. Right now they're 1-1. They're ranked in the state of Louisiana number 37. What do you know about Evangel?
I know that, I don't know if our watchers know, but 10, 15 years ago, that was the storied program in the United States.
Right.
They were the most recognizable name in the United States. And it might be us now because of the craziness, and we're good. But they were so recognizable. They're still good in Louisiana. What's funny is they had some problems in their school, and they're a religious school, Shreveport Evangel Christian. Mm-hmm. I think their proper name. And they had some problems in their church. They spun off in Calvary Baptist, so they actually went down for a while. They were doing so good. They won state championships so much for a while. The state did opposite of what Arkansas did. Arkansas started taking the private schools, and some states take every school. If you win, they move you up. It's like soccer in England. Relegation, move you down, and you move up if you win enough. Well, they moved them. If they won a state championship, they'd move them up. Then they'd move them up again. Then they move them again. Finally, they were winning the top classification, and they go, wait a minute, we're putting them at the bottom. So they put them all the way down at the bottom, and they just dominated, but they're like, maybe that'll make kids not want to go to school. Who wants to play single A ball? If you can play higher. So there was some of that. That's some of their ranking. On film, really good. Yeah. They're in the top probably 10 most talented teams I've seen. Wow. And they're going to have some guys that go on and start and go to LSU. If you'll remember, they were putting guys at USC. They had the Booty brothers that were quarterbacks. Yep. They were putting guys at LSU. They're talented and well coached. And they play a good schedule in the non-conference. They'll run through their conference schedule. They'll go undefeated. But they're like us. They play a good non-conference schedule. They're playing us. I give them some credit for playing great non-conference and getting them ready for the postseason. And they're ranked 37, not because they're the 37th best team, because of where they've got them playing. Sure. You just can't rank them that high because they're not going to play anybody in the state of Louisiana once they get into conference and stuff. Right. So really, really good team. I hate to be playing this good of teams back-to-backs, but I do know back-to-back, but I do know in the end it's going to be good for us. But really good team. I'm hoping we can go down there and represent our state, represent our school well with our type of play. And I know our kids are going to play hard, so I'm always proud of that.
Well, with the number of fans that showed up to Brentwood, I was just excited to see how many people came out for that game. There's no doubt that we're going to pack that visitor section.
I should have said that at the beginning. I was in awe. I expected to go out there and see, we got 53 kids, 106 parents out there, and maybe some grandparents. Sure. And it was packed.
It was completely packed.
And they always amaze. It always amazes me. We go to Dallas and Highland Park and it's packed. We go to Chaminade, California, and I'm like, we have 500 people follow us out there. I'm amazed. And Nashville was huge. I looked and I couldn't believe how many fans were there. And it's former players, it's former students, it's parents that had kids here 10 years ago. You bring a big game out and everybody's coming no matter where it is. And what a great atmosphere for the kids.
No kidding. So hopefully we're going to see the same thing when we go to Shreveport this week. Yeah. And but if you can't make it down there to join us, you can find the game at pabruins.tv or just look us up on YouTube at PA Live and throw us a subscription there. We'll make sure you get notified every time we have a new game. Coach, thanks again for joining me.
Enjoyed it as always.
We'll see you on Friday.
Sounds good.
Everyone else, thanks. This has been What's Bruin.